Firemaking is one of the simpler skills in Runescape. Many people seem to think it's one of the most useless skills in the game, but there are actually quite a few uses to it. The most common use is obviously a portable range, but it's also needed when adventuring in dark caves and sometimes when training prayer. Training firemaking is straightforward. You use a tinderbox on a log, the log is dropped and lit, and it ignites into fire, giving experience in the process. After each log is lit, the player will move west one spot unless there's an obstruction. This is important to keep in mind when training firemaking. And on that note, it's also important to know that if your firemaking level is high enough, and you're quick enough, you can automatically burn another log immediately after you burn the first log. In this video, I'm showing an example of this. Alright, let's talk about log types. The first log you can burn is the normal log. I suggest going to level 20 with these. At 32 GP each, and giving 40 XP each log, you'll need 112 logs to get to level 20. It should only cost 3,584 GP. Personally, I suggest cutting these yourself. There's a lot of them west of Lumbridge Castle, and another clump just to the east of Varrock. Once you're done with these, it's time to move on to oaks. Oak logs give 60 experience per log, and your new goal is level 35. From here, you'll need to burn 299 oak logs, which costs about 8,372 GP. Unless you want woodcutting experience as well, I would suggest buying these from the Grand Exchange for 28 GP each. And now comes the real work. From level 35 to 50, you need to burn 877 willow logs. Each log gives 90 XP. Fortunately, these are the cheapest logs, and cost only 18 GP each. Again, I would suggest buying these unless you want some woodcutting experience. If bought, these will cost 15,786 GP. And now we come to a fork in the road. Some players continue to light willow logs all the way to level 99. This involves lighting 144,000 willow logs. Some players get 99 woodcutting with willow logs and then burn them, and others buy the logs. If bought, it will only cost 2.6 million, which is very reasonable for a 99, especially a buyable. Overall, I give this method a 3 of 5. It's very cheap, but it just takes too long in my opinion. Before I move on, there's something worth mentioning. There's a minigame that's accessible after the completion of the quest, All Fired Up. The goal of this minigame is to light all 14 beacons, stretching from the Temple of Paterdomus all the way to the Ice Plateau near the edge of the wilderness. For keeping 6 beacons lit, you'll be granted a Ring of Fire, which requires 62 firemaking and gives a 2% experience boost in any firemaking activity while worn. For keeping 10 beacons lit, you'll be granted Fire Gloves, which require level 79 firemaking and also give a 2% boost while firemaking. However, if the ring and gloves are worn together, they'll grant a 5% boost. And finally, for keeping all 14 beacons lit, you'll be granted an Inferno Adze, which requires level 92 firemaking and will incinerate about 33% of any logs you cut. So why does this matter? Well, if used while going for level 99 with willows, you'll use about 138,000 willows. That's a difference of 6,000 willow logs, which in the long run could save you a few hours and a bit of money. Also, if you have 92 firemaking already and are cutting logs for 99, or just cutting logs for woodcutting experience, using the Inferno Adze will give you some firemaking experience as you cut. This means that if you're, say, power cutting teaks on a Atoll, you won't have to drop logs as often and can instead cut more. Now that I've talked about that enough, let's get back to that one fork in the road. The other option is to use maple logs until level 65. This will require about 2,600 maple logs. If bought, this will cost about 100k, as each log costs 38 GP. And inevitably, we come across another fork in the road on the journey to 99 firemaking. Personally, I went all the way to 99 with maples, which required about 96,000 maple logs total. This costed 3.7 million, which, again, is very reasonable for a 99. However, if you use the Ring of Fire and the Flame Gloves, you'll only need to use about 92,000 maples, saving you about 200k if you bought them, as well as a couple of hours. Overall, I'd give maples a 4 out of 5. They're pretty cheap, and compared to willows, they're a lot faster. Your other path is to go with eucalyptus logs. If you're up for it, these logs cost 390 gold, and only 7,942 of them are required to get to level 80. This will cost just under 3.1 million. If you're wanting to get to level 99 with these logs, you'll use just under 65,000 of them, which costs a little over 25 million. With the bonuses from the ring and gloves, that can be reduced to about 62,000 logs, costing just over 24 million. I think by now it's obvious that using item boosts is a good idea. I'd give this method a 3 out of 5, mostly because of the cost. Compared to Maple's, I think that a 33% increase in speed doesn't justify a 685% increase in cost. You may be wondering why I'm not talking about U's. Well, when compared to Eucalyptus logs, they give less than 10 XP more per log and cost about 20% more. Without the boost, it would cost about 30 million and only save an hour compared to Eucalyptus. 2 of 5. Alright, time to talk about magic logs. Well, it's probably not the first log that comes to mind when speaking of firemaking, but magics are nonetheless used to raise firemaking. Requiring 36,368 logs for 99 without boosts, and costing about 1,285 GP per log, you'll be looking at spending around 47 million. With boosts, this is decreased to 34,635 logs required and 44.5 million spent. Although this is probably the quickest way to get experience, I consider it a waste, and I gave it a 2 of 5. And finally, there's one more thing concerning boosts that I should talk about. Summoning familiars. 2 familiars, the Pyrolord and the Forge Regent, can act as a tinderbox and give a 10 XP boost per log when burned with them. Unfortunately, the speed at which you firemake using them is slowed. Here's a side-by-side comparison. You may want to keep this in mind if you're considering using one to level 99. One of the most important aspects of firemaking is location. You need to find an area that has a great big open field with which to firemake in. For your convenience, I've suggested a few places you might use. These include the Varrock West Bank, the Piscatoris Fishing Colony, and I don't want to butcher this name, so just this place, and the Falador East Bank. Keep in mind that these are just suggestions, so you don't necessarily have to use them. If you find a place that you think is better, go for it. And for all the pyromaniacs out there, there's one method that I should mention. What it involves is going west halfway through your inventory, and then going east the other half. Unfortunately, this involves a lot of manual clicking, and it's easy to get messed up. But this can speed up your training time considerably because it places you closer back to where you started. Well, that pretty much sums up the firemaking skill. Of course, there are a few other ways to train, such as lighting orbs in the Dorkishan caves. However, for practical purposes, I won't include that in this guide. If you're interested, look it up in the knowledge base. Well, I hope this guide has helped you in some way or another. If you've got questions, you can comment or PM me on YouTube, and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks very much for watching.